Electronisounds Audio, the YouTube channel for you.
Hey, what's happening everyone? It's Dean from Electronisounds. Stick around. Today, I'm really excited to share with you a brand new sound bank for the Elektron Digitakt. It's called Freestyle Mixtape Volume 1, and I've spent the last few months working really hard putting this together. I truly believe that there are sounds in this bank and patterns in this bank for everyone, no matter what style of electronic music that you're into. So come on, let's check out some more examples of what you can make using just the sounds in this bank. For those of you who aren't already familiar with me and my channel, I've been putting out sound banks and sound packs since the early 1990s. If you head over to my website, Electronisounds.com, I'm also selling an additional 7 sound banks for the Elektron Digitakt, as well as sound banks for the Elektron model samples, the Korg Electribes, and standard wave sample format sample packs. I also have several packs of presets for different virtual instruments and synthesizers. Check it out, Electronisounds.com. This bank contains 32 all-new patterns, but there are 2 variations of each pattern for a total of 64 patterns. So banks A through D are completely full with patterns, leaving you the last 4 banks to create patterns of your own. Now these patterns exist so that you can hear what is possible to create using these sounds, but you can also use the patterns to create your own tracks from, to remix, or to reverse engineer and just study how other grooves are put together inside of the Digitakt. The patterns are definitely part of this project, and you are free to use them in your own projects. Okay, I'd like to show you how to install the bank now, and installation really couldn't be easier now that Electron have updated the software for the Digitakt and also the software for their transfer software. So the very first thing that you'll need to do is make sure you have the most recent version of the transfer app from Electron, and also you'll need to make sure that you have your Digitakt upgraded to the most recent version of the firmware. All you need to do now is open the transfer app, and we're going to connect that to the Digitakt, choosing the drop-down menu here. I'm just going to choose MIDI in Electron Digitakt, and I'm going to choose MIDI out Electron Digitakt. The Digitakt is already plugged into my Mac via USB, and you'll need to make sure that you've got a direct connection between your Digitakt and the computer. You don't want to plug your USB into like a USB hub. You want to plug it directly into the computer. So I've got it turned on. I've got it plugged into the Mac. I've got the transfer app, and both the transfer app and the Digitakt have the most recent version. Now I'm just going to connect, and in this very first page that opens up, all we need to do is grab the folder that you've downloaded after you purchase the pack. Inside of that folder are going to be two files. One is the Freestyle Mixtape .project, and the other is the folder of the original wave samples in case you'd like to use those in another box or inside of a DAW in your computer. All we need to do here is just grab the Freestyle Mixtape .project and drop it onto that first page of the transfer app here, and it's now going to ask us how do we want to organize the included samples. Some of these samples, it's got 109 samples in the project. 0 of them are missing on my device because I've already installed the bank, but here you're just going to go ahead and click next, and you're going to it's going to transfer the file into your Digitakt. All you have to do now is go to the Digitakt and go to the open a new project window, and the mixtape volume 1 project is going to be in your Digitakt. When you load that project up, it's going to load up all of the samples and all of the patterns into your Digitakt, and you're good to go. If you have any questions with the installation procedure, just shoot me an email. There's a link to my email address down in the description. Now this bank contains a few samples, which are sample chains. If you've never worked with a sample chain inside of the Digitakt, don't worry, this is very easy to do and super convenient. What we're going to do is we're going to start by loading one of these chains of samples onto the first pad here. So if we just select the pad and we start scrolling through the samples that are in the bank, when we get towards the end of the bank, you're going to run into some sample chains. And how you'll know the sample you're working with is a sample chain is it will be labeled as such. It'll say 12 times a closed hat, or maybe 12 times percussion, or maybe 12 times, C minor chord, or something to that effect. Let's grab that 12 times C minor chord, and we're going to load that onto pad 1 here. Now, by default, if we just go to the source page, we can see all of the individual samples inside of this chain of samples. Now, by default, the Digitakt will allow us to change the start point of a sample from 1 to 120. So all you need to do with the sample chains is divide that start time by the number of samples that are in the chain, and that will tell you how to access the different samples. Example, this chain here has 12 samples. So if we divide 120, the available possible start time for our sample, if we divide 120 by 12 samples, we're going to get 10. So every division of 10 here on the start time will trigger another sample. What we'll do is we can bring the decay time down to about 7 or 8, so that it's not going to play a whole lot after we let go of the sample. We can change the end time to any number lower than 10, because this is divided by 10. I hope that makes sense. And now when I press the pad, only just that one little chop will play. Now, since this is 12 samples in the chain, if I divide 120, the possible start time, by 12, that gives us 10. So every denomination of 10, we get to access the next sample. So if I want to access sample 2 in this chain, I just set the start point to 10. And now I'm accessing a different sample. If I want to access, say, the 4th sample, I can just set the start time to 40. So here we go, 40. So I can go ahead and any division of 10 will trigger a full sample. So here's 80, for example. And along this chain are just going to be, all chords in the key of C minor. So if we had loaded a different sample, for instance, that did not have 12 on it, let's say we loaded, this 6 times F noir samples, right? Now we just divide 6 by 120. However many samples are in the chain, you divide that number by, divide 120, the possible start times, by that number. So here we have 6 samples. So we're going to set the end time here to 20, because 6 goes into 120 6 times. So I can set that, to like 1980, or I can even go up to a full, 20 exactly if we want to. And now I'm triggering just that first sample. If I want to trigger the next sample, I just go to the next division of 20. So that's going to be 20. I can get that right on the line here for 20. And now I'm working with that second sample. And you can use this as your parameter locking things to steps as well, so that you get, multiple samples in that pattern. You can go ahead and hit any division of 20. So for instance, if I put this at 80, straight up 80 there. So basically, all you need to remember is that you're working with, when you are working with the sample chain, whatever the number is, you just divide 120 by that number, and that's where you can get the individual sample slices to start in your sessions. I hope that makes sense. There are a lot of sounds in this pack. I sampled everything in here from my Virus Darkstar to my Euro rack system. But I also wanted to leave plenty of slots for you to be able to import your own sounds into this bank to work with alongside of these sounds. The samples in this bank fill up the slots from 0 to 111, but the Digitakt sample slots go up to 127. So from 112 to 127, you've still got lots of room to load your own sounds.
With a greater sense of understanding comes a greater sense of wonder and a greater realization that we are part of and not apart from the rest of nature.